This is live from New Delhi. You're watching TT India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. U.S. begins crackdown on illegal immigrants. 538 arrested, hundreds deported. Kremlin says Putin ready to talk to Donald Trump, waiting for signals from U.S. Says Ukraine conflict does not depend on oil prices. And in the Australian Open, Alexander Zverev reaches finals. Injury forces Novak Djokovic to concede. Our top story. 3 days after Donald Trump was sworn in as the United States president, authorities arrested 538 illegal immigrants and deported hundreds in a mass operation. White House press secretary has claimed that the suspected terrorists, 4 members of the Tren de Aragua gang, which is a Venezuelan-based transnational criminal organization, and several convicted of sex crimes against minors were among the arrested. The White House also posted the details of the arrests on the X platform, putting the number of arrests at 538 and 373 detainees. The move comes after Donald Trump signed a slew of executive orders on his first day of office that were aimed to tightening border security and facilitating the deportation of undocumented immigrants in the country. The order says that over the past 4 years, the U.S. saw an unprecedented flood of illegal immigration. Staying with the U.S. President Donald Trump, he has called on Saudi Arabia and the other organization of the petroleum exporting countries, or the OPEC nations, to reduce oil prices, asserting that lower prices would help bring the war between Russia and Ukraine to an immediate end. Addressing the World Economic Forum being held at Davos in Switzerland virtually, Trump said that he was surprised that it did not happen before his election.
I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love by them not doing it. I was a little surprised by that. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately.
Laying out a vision for American economic prosperity, Trump promised global elites lower taxes if they bring manufacturing to the U.S. and threatened to impose tariffs if they don't. He also assured incentivizing companies to facilitate business there. He thus laid out a carrot and stick kind of approach for private investment in the U.S. to strengthen the economy.
My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt.
Making a U-turn from his earlier statements regarding the tariffs, U.S. President Donald Trump has now said that he could reach trade deal with China. In an interview to a news channel, President Trump said the two countries will have a very good relationship and the world, and he would rather not use tariffs against China. In response, China on Friday said that that the U.S. and China could resolve the differences through dialogue. Trump also said his conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping last week was friendly and he thought he could reach a trade deal with China. The leaders discussed issues including TikTok, trade and Taiwan in a phone call before Trump took office.
Conversation with President Xi. We have problems with them. They have territorial ambitions with Taiwan, intellectual property theft, their unfair trade practices. How'd that conversation go?
It went fine. It was a good, friendly conversation. I had a great relationship with him prior to COVID. I had a very good relationship with him. I thought it was a very good conversation.
Donald Trump also called for an immediate end to the conflict in Ukraine. He threatened tariffs, taxes and sanctions on Russia if President Vladimir Putin refuses to negotiate a resolution to the conflict. Trump added that Putin should never have initiated the conflict.
Should end immediately. Should have never started. That would never have started if I were. I used to talk to Putin about it. Ukraine was the apple of his eye, but there was no chance that he would ever do it. And he didn't do it. Putin shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have done it, and it has to stop. Do you know they've lost about 850,000 Russian soldiers and 700,000 Ukrainian soldiers?
President Trump signed an order to declassify government files related to the assassinations of former President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. on Thursday. Trump had promised on the campaign trail to release classified intelligence and law enforcement files concerning the assassination of President Kennedy, or JFK, as he was fondly known. He had made a similar commitment during his first term and in fact released some documents related to JFK's 1963 murder. The assassination of JFK in particular continues to captivate the American public. Meanwhile, a federal judge blocked Donald Trump's administration on Thursday from implementing the executive order curtailing the right to automatic birthright citizenship in the United States. A U.S. district judge issued temporary restraining order at the urging of 4 Democratic-led states, namely Washington, Arizona, Illinois, and Oregon, preventing the administration from enforcing the order. The judge says the order, which was slated to take effect in February, was blatantly unconstitutional. The ruling imposes 14-day halt on enforcing the orders, while the judge considers whether to issue a non-lasting preliminary injunction. The judge will hear arguments over whether to do so on February 6th. The case is one of the 5 lawsuits being brought by 22 states and a number of immigrants' rights groups across the country. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has also said that his administration will appeal the decision to temporarily block the executive order restricting birthright citizenship. Trump has signed the order on Monday, his first day back in office.
Mr. President, a U.S. judge temporarily blocks the birthright citizenship order. Do you have any reaction?
No, obviously we'll appeal it. They put it before a certain judge in Seattle, I guess, right? And there's no surprises with that judge.
Moving on to an update from the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russian Defense Ministry on Friday has said that they repelled massive drone attack by Ukraine, intercepting and destroying 131 Ukrainian drones that targeted 13 regions of the country, including Moscow and the capital. Although the ministry made no mention of any casualties, it stated that 6 drones aiming at Moscow and 1 over the capital was destroyed. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Interior Ministry on Friday has claimed that they downed 25 out of 58 Russian drones in an overnight attack launched by Russia. It also claimed that 3 civilians, including 2 men and a woman, were killed and 1 other person was injured in the Kyiv region. The attack also destroyed residential and commercial buildings and vehicles. After U.S. President Donald Trump's call for an immediate end to the conflict in Ukraine, the Kremlin has responded by saying that President Vladimir Putin was ready to talk to U.S. counterpart Donald Trump, but was waiting for signals from Washington. Putin and the newly inaugurated American president have both said they are ready to meet for talks on Ukraine. Trump has threatened Russia with tougher economic sanctions if Moscow does not agree to end the conflict. In fact, Kremlin added that it could not comment further on a meeting between the leaders, saying it was hard to read coffee grounds to predict the future. The Kremlin also rejected a claim from Trump that the conflict in Ukraine could be ended by lowering the price Russia receives for its oil, saying conflict does not depend on oil prices. An Austrian real estate developer has been arrested at his home and is waiting trial in a massive fraud case. Rene Benko has made a name for himself as one of Europe's biggest developers, but his success had long been eclipsed by his failures. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and he joins me live from Berlin on this story. Lars, thank you for joining. Let's start at the beginning. Who is this gentleman in question? What are his credentials?
Thanks for having me. Well, Rene Benko, as you pointed out, is a hugely successful real estate mogul, or at least he seemed to be a hugely successful one for many years. In his portfolio are some of the great properties all over Europe and even the United States. There specifically is one of his absolute prime properties, the famous Chrysler building in New York City, that beautiful Art Deco skyscraper on 42nd Street that's often been called the most beautiful skyscraper in the world. And it is truly beautiful, but it has been plagued with financial problems, much like the rest of Benko's properties. And those include Berlin's famous KaDeWe luxury mall, other giant retail objects in Munich and Vienna, and as his latest venture, the Elb Tower in Hamburg, a tower that was supposed to become a Hamburg landmark and is now basically a money pit and an empty shell waiting for someone else to finish it, lest the city would be left with an unfinished building in one of its very best locations. Anyway, Rene Benko is in his late 40s. He comes from a middle-class family and he got into real estate by converting attic space into luxury living space. He worked his way up from there, at times owning several department stores, many of them in German cities.
Having said that, what really happened? What's the backstory that brought Rene Benko to the point of his arrest?
Well, Benko's strategy was one that we've seen before in real estate. Developers there don't always work with their own money, but with investors' money. And Benko had many investors and many companies. Actually, the entire Benko empire took investigators a long time to untangle, as he has organized it in over 1,000 separate firms and entities. So there's extremely convoluted money flows. And with so many companies, it was easy for Benko to move money around to make this or that asset look better on paper than it actually was. So a fraud now is top of the list of charges against Benko, who has regularly inflated assets and made others invest on false premises. But there's also corruption, there's infidelity, as Benko has moved or tried to move assets now to ensure they can't be repossessed by creditors. There's delay of insolvency. So there's a host of charges, and Benko is likely going to jail. For now, the courts will decide whether he has to stay in jail until his trial starts. But given his wealth, I would be surprised if they would let him walk.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Lars, for joining us live from Berlin on that story. And now let's take a quick look at the other stories also that are making headlines. We begin with the heavy winds lashing Northern Ireland as Storm Alwyn approaches from the Atlantic, with Ireland and Scotland on high alert. Schools have been closed, trains and flights to Ireland have been cancelled. Increased air pollution in Thailand forced the closure of more than 350 schools on Friday, as Bangkok was ranked the world's 7th most polluted major city. Thailand usually suffers from seasonal air pollution. From Thailand, moving to Cuba, which has opened its first grocery store accepting US dollars in nearly 2 decades. This move reflects a growing trend towards dollarization on the island, where the economy is struggling. Still to come on this edition of DT India Live. On the other side, we'll talk about India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulates Michael Martin on assuming the office of Prime Minister of Ireland. And all preparations in place for India's 76th Republic Day celebration. Stay with us to know more.
Timeless, boundless, and infinite. The essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture. From the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic. World's largest cultural and spiritual gathering. with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Now let's move on to more news and updates. Michael Martin was elected the Irish Prime Minister for the second time by a coalition of the country's two large centre-right parties and independent lawmakers on Thursday. The coalition is the second in a row between rivals Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, with independents replacing junior coalition partner, the Green Party, which lost most of its seats. The initially scheduled vote to elect Martin on January 22nd descended into a chaos when the parliament was suspended 4 times after opposition protests. An agreement by both sides that government supporting independents cannot for now retain extended the speaking rights from the opposition benches, paving the way for Martin to be elected. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday congratulated Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin, who is set to return for his second term in office. Taking to platform X, Indian Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote, "Congratulations, Michael Martin, on assuming the office of Prime Minister of Ireland, committed to work together to further strengthen our bilateral partnership that is based on strong foundation of shared values and deep people-to-people connect." India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar has called on visiting Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto in New Delhi on Friday. President Prabowo Subianto will be the chief guest for India's 76th Republic Day celebrations this year. During his visit, President Subianto will hold bilateral talks with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday. He will also meet President of India Draupadi Murmu. This is President Prabowo's first visit to India in his capacity as a president after assuming office in October 2024. The state visit of President Prabowo will provide an opportunity for the leaders to undertake a comprehensive review of bilateral ties as well as to discuss regional and global issues of mutual interest. India's Railways and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav held a meeting with the Prime Minister of Bhutan, Tshering Togbe, in Davos on Friday. Both the leaders discussed rail connectivity to Bhutan and IT services. Minister Vaishnav of India also held discussions with a group of founders of AI startups, and he has also underscored that the focus and direction of India AI mission was well appreciated throughout the WEF 2025 in Davos. Addressing a press briefing in New Delhi, India's Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson has said that India is against illegal immigration because it is linked to several forms of organized crimes. On the upcoming
are against illegal immigration, especially because it is linked to several forms of organized crime. For Indians, not just in the United States but anywhere in the world, if they are Indian nationals and they are overstaying or they are in a particular country without proper documentation, we will take them back, provided documents are shared with us so that we can verify their nationality, that they are indeed Indians. If that happens to be the case, then we will take things forward. We'll facilitate the return to India.
On the upcoming visit of India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri to China, MEA spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal said that Foreign Secretary will be meeting his counterpart, the Vice Minister in China, where all issues of bilateral interest will be discussed.
This visit is going to happen on 26th, 27th of January. Foreign Secretary will be meeting his counterpart, the Vice Minister in China, where all issues of bilateral interest will be discussed. And that would include, I guess, Kailash Mansarovar Yatra as well.
Well, the last session of the International Conference on Global Election Year 2024, reiteration of democratic spaces, concluded in New Delhi today. This event was organized by the Election Commission of India. The event saw participation of the various election commission bodies across the world, sharing their insights on upholding the digital mechanism in conducting elections. India's Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar called for the essential steps in enhancing the elections with digital advancements.
The power of democracy lies in ensuring that no voice is left unheard. Accessibility and inclusivity must remain at the heart of electoral process, irrespective of the tech insertion in election management. We must use the entire technological innovations to ensure that every voter gets into the roll and is taken from roll to poll. Simplifying voter registration, ensuring accessible polling stations, and offering multilingual voter education are essential steps towards empowering marginalized communities. Technology makes these possible.
Following the conclusion of the international conference titled Global Election Year 2024, Reiteration of Democratic Spaces, Key Takeaways for EMBs, the heads and representatives of the election management bodies, that is EMBs of the countries of the world, also adopted Delhi Declaration 2025. They declared and resolved to remain ever committed to transparent, credible and inclusive polls and to election integrity. That we will never succumb to any undue pressure or influence, that we will steadfastly guard the integrity and the purity of the list of electors while making sure that no eligible citizen is disenfranchised, that we will keep our undiluted focus on the centrality of the voter and their rights in election space and do everything in our means to facilitate them in the electoral process. That we shall take up proactive interventions of voter education and electoral participation for increased registration and turnout of voters, that we will engage in a determined fight to keep the election process free, fair and transparent, that robust judicial mechanisms must be put in place to deal with post-election grievances, that we will pursue the path of technological integration and innovation to make our operations more efficient and effective, that we will vigorously resist all fake narratives that may be created to undermine the electoral process. More specifically, a working group will be constituted of all willing EMBs worldwide for dealing with issues of social media, artificial intelligence and cyber security. The high points of the EMBs adopted at the Delhi Declaration 2025. The grand finale of National School Band competition is being held at Major Dhyan Chand National Stadium in New Delhi. A total of 16 bands teams comprising 466 children are competing in the grand finale. It has been organized to rejuvenate and rekindle the spirit of patriotism, unity amongst children in schools throughout the country.
The Republic Day 2025 is going to be a unique blend of India's cultural diversity and military prowess, with a special focus on 75 years of the enactment of the Constitution and Jan Bhagidari or people's participation. All the finalists of the National School Band competition who've come here to perform today are also invited as our special guests to witness the Grand Republic Day Parade.
Primarily to bring in a certain sense of discipline. And I think music has the capacity to bring all of us together. And over the years it has grown. But I think the most important part is how do you come in together as part of a team.
And in some sports news, India's 18-year-old chess sensation and world champion Gukesh has been making waves on the global stage. This time all eyes are on him as he competes in the prestigious Tata Steel chess tournament in the Netherlands, often referred to as the Wimbledon of chess. Mark Limburg reports for DD India.
It was a little more than 1 month ago that Indian chess grandmaster Gukesh became the youngest world champion ever. In Singapore, he defeated the former champion Rene from China. Now, almost 6 weeks later, Gukesh is back in the game, contending in yet another important tournament, the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, held until Sunday the 2nd of February in Wijk aan Zee in the Netherlands. It is the 87th edition of this prestigious tournament, also known as the Wimbledon of chess, with former champions like Anatoly Karpov, Garry Kasparov, Magnus Carlsen and Viswanathan Anand. How does it feel for Gukesh to play again for the first time, almost 6 weeks after he became world champion?
Yeah, it was really good to get back to chess. The last few days or few weeks I had a lot of things to do back home, so it was really good to come here and just focus on chess.
Gukesh arrived in the Netherlands just hours before his first tournament game and just days after he was personally congratulated with his World Championship title by Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah, first of all, I'm very grateful for the Khel Ratna award. It was, I mean, for any Indian athlete, it's a dream come true. So it was really nice, and yeah, I just landed in Amsterdam like 9 a.m. and I had to play the round at 2 p.m. So it was, yeah, it was a new experience, but okay, it went well.
Although the weather in the Netherlands is very different than in his hometown of Chennai, is he looking forward to the rest of the tournament, and what would it mean to him to win this tournament?
Coming from Chennai, it's like a struggle to be in minus degrees, but okay, I'm used to this, so yeah, looking forward to the next games.
After the 2nd of February, we will know if the new world champion will also be the winner of this legendary Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Mark Limburg reporting for DD India in Wijk aan Zee, the Netherlands.
And with that, it's all for this edition of DD India Live. But you please let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.